Hello, this is Michael McCarthy, and in this video we're going to take a look at Zookeeper and its synoptic views. So Zookeeper has all sorts of different views. We've taken a look at object views and layer views, schematic views, and things of that nature. And in this view you can see that I have a simple teapot. I've created a pretty simple cell shader using a few fall-off maps that pipe into each other. Really easy to create in a node-based system. And if we just render this out quickly, you'll see how that looks. So what I want to do is I want to make a really simple synoptic setup. You can see that this has a bend modifier on it, which we can see over here, as well as a stretch. And there may be some things that we might want to edit about the material. So a synoptic view is a visual representation, a little bit more or a little bit more simple than what we have here that is made with a bitmap. It's good for rigging and setting up basic visual scene representations of what might be going on. So let's just right click and go into Make Synoptic. And you see there's an option for loading a background image or capturing the viewport. Right now I'll just capture this viewport at 100%. And you can see what happens is all the nodes get turned into little icons. So you can kind of adjust them and put them wherever you want. The nodes also become automatically clickable. So when I select this object, it selects it over here really quickly. So I can just kind of move this into place. And you can arrange these icons, the ones that you need. So right now I'm just going to disable that. I'm going to set double click for nodes so that I can arrange them very easily. And I don't need these shaders. Maybe I need the blend shader. I'm not 100% sure yet. Here's my stretch modifier. I don't need this modifier stack, so I'll just delete that. And here is my bend. So now what I can do is just make an arrangement of these objects for whatever type of setup in the scene. I have a simple teapot set up here with maybe some animation you might do, but you might have an architectural scene where you select a bunch of different things, or you need to open windows or set up different lights, or you might have some character rigs set up. Whatever tends to lend itself to a really visual selecting and editing scenario. So one thing I can do is just kind of place this over here, and then I can right click on that and set the node transparency to hidden. And then basically we've created a hotspot right there. When we click, it will select that object. So I'm going to do the same thing with this material and these little stretch nodes and maybe even the shader. So some things that I might want to adjust about this are maybe the material, maybe the shader, and maybe some things with the bend. Now, just like we did with composite nodes, if I just exit Synoptic View for a moment, I can go into any one of these and I can set one of the angles, set one of the options to an input. So I'm going to choose composite input from the angle here. I'm going to go in here and I'll set the self-illumination because that's pretty key to a cell shader as a composite input. And I'll do the same thing with the stretch amount. I'll set that to a composite input. So the same workflow that you would do or use for setting up composite nodes, you use for the synoptic views as well. So now I'll go back into the synoptic view, and this time what I'm going to do when I go to make synoptic view, I'm going to load a different image. So I'm going to say load background image, and I'm just going to choose this background image that I made. So this just has, some basic kind of graphical representation of what I might want. And then I can kind of position these into places I want. So I'm going to just kind of pop this in this square and set that up here. Here is my self-illumination. And I'm going to put the bend over there. Here is the stretch. Pop that in here. And I'm going to pop the bend over here, my little angle setup. And now what I can do is set this to opaque, and we'll move it over our object so that we make a little hotspot selection for it. Then we'll set it to 100%, which is hidden. So I can go, after I've done set up everything up, and uncheck double click for node actions. And all of these on a single click will bring up whatever you want. So this brings up the selection of this object. If I click on stretch, you see it'll bring me to that stretch in the modifier stack as well as bend. If I will click on the material, it will bring up the material editor very quickly. So it gives me this one place where I can go and access these things really quickly in a visual way. I can also go in because I adjusted these parameters, and I'll just change this to active shade, and I put in the self-illumination here. I drop that down, see that update over here, type something in like 100, and you'll see we'll get our updates there. And in the angle, we can just scrub this to bend our teapot and adjust the strength of the stretch interactively here. So that's a pretty interesting little simple setup that kind of shows how you set up and what you can do with synoptic views in Zookeeper. Let's just go over to our layers, and I'm going to hide this simple setup and just bring up a biped, and you see that we have our biped here kind of walking around in a circle. So this also lends itself to rigging, of course. When I go in and set up something for a biped, I can quickly select any piece of this biped by just clicking on the image. I've set up the nodes to be on top of this guy, and if I want to grab the COM object, I can quickly grab that, move it up and down, and do whatever I want to this character. And easily, no matter what position they happen to be in the viewport, I have this guy here. And if I need to, I can tear these off and I can use them in a view kind of separately or something like that, which is really pretty interesting. So I'm going to pop this back in there. And let's bring up one other synoptic view that I've made up here quickly. We'll go into the layers. I'm going to hide the biped. I'm going to unhide my cat rig. I'll just zoom extends that. And I can go and select this girl's hand and just start to move that. So I'll press N to start animating here. And then I can just kind of move this into place, rotate that around, and I'll go and grab the pelvis here. And I can just move that down for the character. So no matter what position they're in, it's really easy to select any of the spine links or the legs or the foot controller, and you can just kind of put whatever you want in these synoptic views, which is really pretty helpful. I've also added here an extra node, just as we had with the teapot, just do a little bit of a chest breathing scenario. So if the character has a breathe cycle or something like that, I can put this in there. Any sort of morph controllers or anything, look at constraints, all that different stuff I can put into a synoptic view and start playing with it, which brings us to our face controls. We'll put that here, and we can easily grab any of these, no matter what position our character is in. We can kind of grab those and start to adjust them and set different facial expressions or position for the character. So that's a little bit about setting up synoptic views. In this case, we set up a simple example and done some things with characters, but it can also be used very effectively for architectural scenes and for effects-driven animation where you just want to adjust a couple of different parameters and have a nice visual way to see how that might work. So that's how you use synoptic views in